There we go. That should do it. All right. So it's great to be back with Christina and with all of you here in ILAC as well. I've done several Instagram lives now with Christina and ILAC and some Zoom webinars. So perhaps we've met before. So welcome back. If you're new though, let me introduce myself really quickly. My name is Brandy and I am an online instructor for the CELPIP test. And I'm here today to cover specifically the listening part of CELPIP. But we will do some practice note taking. We'll answer some practice test questions. So you'll get a really good sort of 1 hour session on that. But our focus tonight is all about time management because yes, CELPIP is a language test, but part of being successful on any test is understanding how to very quickly find the information we need so we can answer the questions well. So today's focus is about that time management on the listening test itself. So I'm going to start off by giving a really quick overview of your CELPIP listening test, just to make sure we understand what to expect. So there will be 6 conversations altogether. We clearly won't have time to do them all tonight. We're going to look at 2 particular practices, but there are 6 parts on the official test. And I think from a time management standpoint, just be aware that when you're coming into the listening test, you'll be asked to listen to a conversation for anywhere between 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes in length. You don't have to memorize these details as you'll always have reminders on screen about how long the dialogues will be. But I think when the brain understands how long it has to listen and focus, it's going to help you engage with the material longer. You'll also have anywhere from 5 to 9 questions to answer on any given part. And here's the thing, the audio that you're going to hear is going to just start playing automatically. You cannot pause it, you cannot replay any portions later. And the questions that will be required to answer always are going to arrive after the audio has finished. So this leads us effectively to time management tip number 1. This is as much a language tip as it is a time management tip, because on the CELPIP listening test, we strongly recommend you take effective notes while you're listening to that audio clip, because again, you can't listen to it again. So if you can record down any of these main points, you'll have your notes in front of you to help you answer the questions later on as well. So I'm going to give you some strategies about note-taking that will make it a lot faster for you to actually answer the questions on your test. And we're going to practice this tonight. So I should have said 5 minutes ago, if you don't already have pen and paper near your desk right now, please go get pen and paper. I'm going to mute you, Lorena, because it's interrupting the presentation. Yeah. Okay. Everybody else is on mute? Perfect. Okay. It's a listening activity, so we need to be able to hear the dialogue here. Thank you for doing that. But you will be taking notes tonight, so if you've got pen and paper, that would be helpful. Your notes have to be brief. So this may sound obvious, but I'm here to remind you that you're not going to have time to write down every single word that you hear in the conversation. In fact, I don't even want you to write the full word at a time. If you can find yourself some short forms, that would be ideal. So we listen for the keywords only. These are the 5 W's: who, what, where, when, and why. And when we can identify the speakers referencing those words, you yourselves are going to come up with your own style of taking notes. There are so many ways every one of us could take notes. As long as, can I ask you to mute yourself? Okay, yeah. Hopefully that will not happen again, because it's hard to stop and start. We've only got an hour, so I'm going to try to finish this presentation on time. As I was saying, there's no real wrong way to take notes, provided that you yourselves understand the short forms you're using. I'm going to show you some examples of short forms and symbols again very soon. All right. Another tip, and this is huge, we can't be a perfectionist on any language test. So because the audio plays once only, we have to focus on what we do understand. So which key points were you able to capture and write down? We cannot dwell or be frustrated if we've missed anything, because again, you're going to spend your time focusing on the past instead of moving forward. So I'm going to show you quickly an example of notes that I've taken for another practice activity. I'm not going to play the audio for this one. I just want you to look at the notes I've written. This was about a 2-minute dialogue. And from that 2-minute dialogue, I was able to capture about 7 or 8 main points. So you notice the organization, and these are all time management tips. I've got 2 columns, effectively organizing when the woman is speaking and when the man is speaking, as there were 2 people in this conversation. Every time one of them had a key point, I wrote down that key point underneath their column. So already, if I get questions later on, something to do with the woman, I know to look at her column only, and it's going to save me time. I don't have to sift through all the details in my notes. Notice how many times I've reused this little symbol, the X. For me, the X represents something that you can't do, something that's quite negative. So that first line says that the woman just can't fall asleep. So I like the X because it's so fast to write down. You can come up with whatever symbol works for you. This one's fairly common. Another common symbol you might include would be something that's increasing or becoming steadily more of. I like the plus sign. Again, it's really fast. Some of my students in my own Zoom sessions, they like to draw little arrows pointing up. So again, it's up to you to play around with your note taking, but you need to find something that works for yourselves, that's quick to write down, and also you want to be consistent. Eventually, when you practice so many times, you're going to start using the same symbols every time. So you don't even have to think about what you'll write down in that regard. Okay, and there's a lot of little short forms too. So some of these keywords, that second one down, the man was talking about concentration and coordination problems. I wouldn't have time to write down all of those words. They're too long. So these short forms made sense to me. I was able to remember these words later when I looked back at my notes. Okay, you might have to write a few more letters on your notes, and that's perfectly fine, as long as you're aiming to be short and as long as you can remember what the words mean later. That's all you need to worry about. Your notes are for you only. Nobody else on the test ever sees the notes. When you leave the testing room, you simply hand in the notes you've taken during the test, and the note paper goes in the recycle bin. So they don't count for your score as long as you can read them. That's the main thing. And you can see some other examples here: accident, family, activities, friends. So I'm able to read these short forms so quickly because I'm the one that came up with them for myself. As I say, you'll come up with your own short forms with practice. So with note taking, I think practicing taking notes is its own language skill, and we'll do a little bit of that today. But if I can bring us back to this really strong focus of time management, our notes, we want to get them set up and ready to go before the audio plays. So this is going to save you just a little bit of time as well. So there will be an instruction screen first on every single listening part of this test. And when that instruction screen is displayed, it's simply going to tell you how many questions you'll be answering and what the format of the test is. So here's an example of your listening part one. You can see that right up in the top part of the screen. And you've got about 3 bulleted points with lots of instructions. I went ahead and underlined in orange, really the main parts we need to remind ourselves of. Here's the thing though, when you've studied for CELPIP and you've prepared so many times before you actually take the real test, you're going to know that listening part one has 3 sections. You're going to know that after each section, you'll answer 2 or 3 questions. You shouldn't be learning this information for the first time in the testing room. So I'm going to suggest that while this screen is being shown to us in the testing room itself, this is when you actually want to start setting up your notes. Use that time wisely, because it's information you already should know anyway, to set the note up. And this is what I'd like you to do right now, please, if you can. This doesn't take a long time to draw. It'll take you just a few seconds. But again, get it set up before the audio plays. So we also will know before we take the official test that listening part 1 to 3, you'll have 2 speakers. It's always going to be a man and a woman. That much we've learned just from practice. So this is how we would set up our notes for the first 3 parts of the listening test. If you could kindly do that now, that would be helpful. So just draw that letter T to make 2 columns, and you can put man and woman up top. Or if you want to be even quicker, you can write M and W. And I'm sure you'll remember what that means. So your notes are set up there on that instruction screen. And here's the next step. After that instruction screen, again, before you even hear the dialogue, you're going to have one more computer screen that gives you an introductory statement. And this introduction, it's very general, but it is going to give you some relevant information about who you're going to be hearing in the conversation and also the main topic they'll be discussing. So what I'd like us to do right now, here's a sample. So it tells us that the man, we can see pictured even, is the bus driver, and the woman is a passenger, and she's trying to get somewhere. So while this screen is facing you, and you've already got your 2-column chart set up and ready to go, it takes just a moment to write down these details about the who. So above the man's name, as you can see, I've written in brackets, driver, and then the woman is the passenger. And I think it's helpful to do this for many reasons, but the who and the what are always the most important parts of comprehension. If you know who's speaking and roughly what they're talking about, that's so much information that will help you with the other questions. And once you go by that test instruction screen, once you move on to the actual conversation, you're not able to go back to past computer screens. So we might as well write down these details while that information is facing us. It's a time management strategy, but also a focused practice for your language skills too. So we've got this. I hope you've got this at home as well if you'd like to practice note-taking. So really important to realize too that your first 3 parts of the listening test, the structure is the same for each of them. You'll hear the conversation, you'll take those notes like we've just set up and had a quick glance at. When the questions arrive though, they're going to be read out loud to you one at a time. So we just have to remember that for the first 3 parts. You will have 30 seconds in total from when the question begins to be read to you until when you have to have answered the question. There are always 4 multiple choice answers and you must select one within that 30-second timer. And there's a timer right on the top of the computer screen. So you'll always see how much time you have left. So it's relatively easy for time management in the first half of your CELPIP listening because you can quickly glance up at the screen, look at the timer. Please make sure you've answered something before the timer gets to 0. That's all. Here's what we're going to try tonight, and this is adding on a little bit more to our effectiveness or efficiency, I guess, as test takers for listening. You've already would have taken notes for the conversation, so why not, when this question's being read out loud to you, why not take notes for the question as well? Because remember, you only hear it once, and if you miss it or forget about it later, there's no chance to review. So if you could take some quick notes, write down just the keywords from the question. The questions are short. About 3 seconds long it takes to hear them out loud. And after we've got the question captured on our page, so we can review it later if we forget what we're trying to remember here, we will then be able to look at the answer choices on screen. And I want you to note the keywords in each of those answer choices. They'll all be very different one to the next. So note what the keywords are, and then looking back at those notes that we have so beautifully organized and taken all of our short forms and so on, it's our job now to find those keywords from the question or answer choices in the notes themselves. So you're not really looking at all of the ideas in your notes to answer every single question. To save yourselves time, it's knowing which words, which keywords am I looking for in my notes that's going to answer this question. And of course, once you find it, you can hopefully select the right answer from the 4 choices. Again, it's a matter of keeping an eye on your timer. Some of these questions, especially listening part 1, that's the easiest part of the test. So you'll probably answer questions fairly quickly there. But as the entire CELPIP test moves on, by the time you get to part 5 and 6, the test gets harder, and it's designed that way specifically. So it might take you a little bit more time as you work through to answer these questions. I do want you to keep an eye on the timer. If you truly don't know the answer, please guess something before that timer gets to 0. If you get it wrong, there's no penalty. You never lose marks on CELPIP. But if you guess it right, you're going to get a point towards your overall listening score. And every single point you earn helps you get a higher score on this test. So that's what I would do is if in doubt, if time is almost up, you're going to just have to guess and be happy with that. Hope for the best in that case. So this leads us to our first of 2 listening practices that I'd like to do with you tonight. I'm going to play a conversation here. This one, I believe, is from a listening part 2. So I stepped it up just a little bit. It's not quite the easiest part of the test, but I'm sure you'll be able to manage it. So I'd like us to practice quickly setting up our notes as we've just examined, but at the right time. And then we're going to actually take notes and answer a question using them. So the name of the game is speed, but also efficiency. So remember, this is your instruction screen. Every single listening part has one. So this says listening part 2 at the very top of the screen. You already should know this before coming into the testing room, but you might remind yourself that there are 5 questions that you'll answer. That's probably one detail I would look at just to make sure I remember. But the rest of the time this screen is facing you, you don't need to read the rest of those instructions. You know them. You know that the questions will be read out loud to you one at a time. So while the screen is up, can we all please quickly set up our notes, just like we looked at? We know that we'll have 2 speakers in listening part 2. We know that one will be a man and one will be a woman. So this should take you 4 seconds to draw on a piece of paper. And I can't tell you off the top of my head how long this instruction screen is on your computer screen, but it'll be longer than 4 seconds. So get your notes set up. Hopefully you've done that already as I've been talking here. And remember then you go on to the next part, which is your introduction. I call it the introductory statement. And this one will tell you who the people are just in very general terms. So we know that they work together. I think that's helpful. But we're told that the woman is having some challenges finishing a project. So in our notes, we might as well capture some relevant details here. I chose not to write down that they're coworkers because I thought I could just remember that detail myself. But while this information's here, I thought it would be helpful if I identified for myself, and you're welcome to do this now too, that it's the woman that's having challenges. Okay, because this screen's going to disappear in a moment and we can never go back. So if we get lost in the conversation, at least looking at our notes, it'll help us make sense of it all, that it's the woman who's struggling. I'm guessing the man's probably going to try to help out then, would be my take on this. So that's what I've written. And then we get to the actual audio part where the conversation is about to play. Right before it plays, you'll be reminded how long it's going to be. I find this helpful. So you don't have to memorize the length of each particular part. I think that would be a bit too much. But just note, this conversation in listening part 2 is going to be close to 2 minutes in length, give or take. So I'm going to go ahead and play this entire conversation. And what I'd like you to do at home while you're practicing, you've got your 2 columns set up with the man and the woman. Write down, remember, keep your notes very short, short form symbols, whatever key points you can think of under the man's column and under the woman's. So the who and the what are always most important, but you might catch some other details like when or where or why something's happened. Okay, so they're going to talk 2 minutes-ish. You'll hear it once only. Organize the details from top to bottom of both people's columns, and I'll explain why that's important in a moment. Here's the conversation. We'll see how you do with it all.
You don't look so good, Anne. You look pale. Is everything all right with you?
I'm okay. I just haven't slept much lately, and I guess it's starting to show. I've been working on a couple of projects, and the work is taking much longer than I thought it would. I've been up most nights writing the reports that are due the next week.
You should get some more sleep. Why don't you finish the reports after work, before you go home for the day?
I can't. I have to pick up my son at the daycare right after work, and when I get home, I have to fix dinner and watch my son until he falls asleep around 10.
That's such a late bedtime.
I know. He's 5 months old, and we are still struggling with bedtime.
Can your husband help you?
He helps around the house a lot. He takes care of the cleaning, the laundry, and cooks breakfast after work every day. But I'm on my own with the bedtime routine, unfortunately.
Breakfast after work?
Yes. He works the night shift. He gets home around 6:30 in the morning, and he cooks us breakfast before he goes to bed.
Sounds like a very stressful situation. Can you ask for an extension on the project?
It is pretty stressful, but I can't really ask for an extension. I'm being considered for a promotion, and I'm afraid that if I ask for one, my boss might think I'm not competent to take on more responsibilities. I don't want to risk my chances. And if I get the promotion, my husband will be able to work day shifts again, which would be more convenient for our family.
Is there anything I can do to help you?
Not really, but thanks for the offer. My husband is taking Friday off, and my mom is picking up my son for the weekend so I can finish the reports and hopefully get some sleep.
Okay, that's the end of the whole conversation. So after that ends, you're taken immediately next to where the questions begin. So this is what your screen now looks like. And before I play the question, I'm just going to quickly show you where the timer is, just in case you've missed it. So this screen will start with 30 seconds. The seconds will show in red, so your eyes are drawn to it. So it begins at 30 seconds. And as the question is being read out loud to you through the headset that you're wearing in the computer room, you'll see the word playing, but this little blue bar is actually going to move on the real test all the way over to the right very quickly. It's the timer, and it takes about 3 to 4 seconds for somebody to read a question out loud. So that's why this says 27 seconds right now. We sort of taken a screenshot, if you will, when the question was just beginning to play. So let's argue that maybe you've had 4 seconds for the question. So that would give you about 26 seconds remaining then to make a choice. And your answer choices are always over here. The number of the question you're working on too is always up here. So you should know already, I hope, this is question 5 of 5. So I'm going to play for you the question. And what I'm hoping you can do quickly at home is, again, take notes for the question. I don't bother writing word for word what you hear. It just takes a bit more time that way. But keep your notes short. Just try to capture the keywords so that you'll remember later on what the question's asking you to do here. So here's the question.
Question 5.
What is her husband doing to help her finish the reports?
Okay, so capture that down. 2-3 seconds at the most. Make this really quick, right? Because you want more time on the answers. So I don't know what you wrote. This is what I was able to scribble down. I typed it for you because my handwriting is awful. If I showed you what I actually wrote, you wouldn't be able to read it. But this to me made sense. So husband do, help her finish report. It's most of the words, frankly, but that made sense to me. Again, your ideas can be shorter than that, as long as you understand the basics of the question. So with that facing you, you're now looking at the 4 answer choices. And if you'd like to go ahead and answer it, you can. Why don't you put your guesses into the Zoom chat here? I won't let you know the answer right away, but if you would like to guess the answer or solve it for us, that would be helpful. So I'll give you a moment. On the actual test, you'd have about 26 seconds, I'll say, of time. And I think you can do this in less than 26 seconds, I hope. We shall see. But yeah, we've got some guesses coming in. Everyone's agreeing with each other. I hope you're answering it first on your own and then looking. Usually when we all agree, we're on the right track, but not always. So it looks like a lot of D's are coming in. We've got a couple of different guesses now coming in. Some people guessing C. Okay, that's great. So that would be probably more than the 30 seconds since I've been talking. So again, you'd watch the timer, make sure you guess something. So what I'll do before I reveal the right answer is I wanted to walk through the time management strategies that we've been talking about. So looking at those 4 answer choices, it will take you just a few seconds to skim read over each one. And your job then, as you're looking at the answer choices, is to identify those keywords. So I went ahead and underlined them for us. So we're trying to figure out what is the husband doing to help this woman finish those reports. So the first choice talks about taking the son away. The second choice is taking the son to daycare. The third choice is the husband's working. The fourth choice is that the husband's taking a day off work. So C and D are opposites, right? They can't both be true. So recognizing the keywords, and this is so important and so helpful from a time management strategy. Recognizing this is the very last question of the bunch. Here's a huge tip. Most of the questions on your CELPIP test are going to be asked in roughly the same order as they occurred throughout that conversation. So knowing that, if I were to say to you, whereabouts in your notes would you want to look for the answer to this question? Knowing this is question 5 of 5, where would you look? Here are my notes, by the way, right? I'll put the question back up on board. So because this is the last question of the bunch, and we know that the order usually follows the order of ideas, it would make the most sense to look towards the bottom of our notes first to find this information. As you can see, there are many points there. This conversation went on for almost 2 minutes. So I've got about 10 points. It might take too much time for you to look at every single point in these notes to answer a question within those 26 seconds or what have you. So knowing where to look in your notes is going to save you that time and help you answer before time gets to 0. So in my question up top that I'd written out by shorthand, we recognize that the question's asking what the husband has done. So husband to me is sort of the most important word for now. So I'm going to look through my notes for something to do with the husband. But again, this is question 5 of 5. So I'm going to start with my eyes down towards the bottom of my notes. And there it is right there. So we see the word husband right away. Now, this does not guarantee that this will give us the answer. But what we have done is we've made a fairly logical assumption about where we might find the answer. So it's a really strong starting point. So as I look at right beside where I've written husband in shorthand, the information there says that the husband is taking Friday off. And we just looked at the keywords in those answer choices. And I distinctly remember one of them said he was taking a day off work. So if we go back to the answer choices now, you would have your notes sort of in your lap, I guess, or on your table. Looking back at the computer, of all of these answer choices and those keywords we've identified, there's only one that talks about taking Friday off work. That happens to be D. So most of you got this right out of the gates. Yeah. So taking Friday off or taking a day off, it means the same thing. So we're able to match up those meanings, and we would select that. We would click with our mouse saying that this is the right answer. If you look at the timer now, as this example shows, whoever did this example managed to answer within about 15 seconds. If this is your case from a time management standpoint, great news. You don't have to sit there and wait for that timer to reach 0. You see that next button on the top of the screen. You can click next and you'll just move yourself on to the next test question. So you actually work through the entire CELPIP test faster by keeping an eye on the time, using these strategies, answering early, and moving yourself on. They all come together for you. And just to prove my point again, we knew husband was the key, right? The whole question's about what he's doing. So we have to find husband somewhere in our notes. Again, I chose to look at the very bottom because it's question 5 of 5. Let's pretend though that you forgot that rule or you got bogged down in all your ideas. You'll notice if you just start at the top of the man's column, as we glance down that column, you'll notice that the word husband is also here. And it even says, the man was asking, does your husband help? And when I look back to my question at the top, sounds promising, doesn't it? The question says, what does the husband do to help her finish? So if we look now to the woman's column right beside where it says husband help, she says, my husband cleans, he does the laundry, he makes breakfast, he works the night shift. So these details don't even address how the husband is helping finish those reports. The woman's ideas there are just sort of a random list of activities the husband does around the house. So none of those details in the middle of my notes are helpful. They're not giving me the information I need to answer this question. So it might have taken you an extra 7 or 8 seconds to read that part and realize this isn't where I need to be looking. And on a language test, when you've only got about 26 seconds to make a choice, wasting 8 seconds of precious time on the wrong part of your notes, it's not the wisest strategy. So it's always knowing where to look and going there first. So this was question 5 out of 5. It just made sense then to start our search down here and look. Okay, this was the right answer in this case, which it often is. On the rough perchance that it doesn't give you the information, as a plan B, then you might have to look elsewhere in your notes. So please keep an open mind about that. But this strategy is very effective in most of your cases. So it's something I would consider doing. If you were answering question 1 of 5, use reverse logic, you'd probably start looking at the top of your notes rather than at the bottom, and so on. So that's how organizing your notes is just a huge time saver, and recognizing keywords on top of it. Okay, so that takes care of sort of parts 1 to 3. You'd be using those same structures. It gets a little bit harder as you move on, but the same strategies apply. Always having the questions read to you, noting the question down, looking for keywords, and so on. We're going to shift gears and look at parts 4 to 6 of the test, because in this case, the audio still plays once. You still take your notes as you're listening. But then when the questions arrive after the conversation is ended, all of the questions will be on one computer screen. And it's up to you now to read the question starter. And then you're going to have 4 multiple choice answers again, or you'll have to pick the answer that completes the sentence. So it's similar strategies, but the format's just a little bit different here. And in this case too, the time management is a little bit trickier because now you've got a certain number of minutes on your timer at the top of the computer screen. Whereas parts 1 to 3, you had 30 seconds per question. That was a lot easier to manage. But now if you've got, say, 3 minutes to answer 5 questions, you have to keep an eye on your timer and recognize that you can't be spending 2 minutes of time on one question. So I think, and I'm going to suggest this now, spending 30 seconds on every question is still a wise strategy. That's how you're going to finish all the questions on one computer screen. So just like you started this test, 30 seconds per question, I would continue that in your own mind, but you have to visually look with your eyes to the timer at the top, just to make sure that you're working through at a good time. Anyway, the other strategies are the same though. You're still going to, again, have taken your notes as you were listening. And then when you can read those questions yourselves and see the answer choices on the computer screen, you still must identify those keywords, those 5 W's. So what is this question asking me to find? Is it a question about a location? Is it a where type detail? Or is it a question about a person and their opinion? That would be the who detail. So we have to recognize what the question's asking us about, and also the answer choices too, right? And then when we recognize what we're trying to find in our notes, we go to our notes and scan down to find those keywords. If we're lucky, the word we chose to write in our notes might match the exact word in the questions and answers. And that sort of happened in the last practice we did. I mean, the whole dialogue was about a wife talking about her son and her husband. So we happened to have written husband a few times. And the question we answered talked about the husband. So that was lucky or easier, because all we had to do was find husband in the notes. Parts 4 to 6, remember, they're more intermediate to advanced. So the language used in the questions and answer choices, there might be synonyms or paraphrased ideas from the lecture. So you might have the same idea written down, it just might be a different word that means the same. So part of your skill here as a test taker in general is having a widely developed vocabulary so you can match the meanings together. Anyway, once you locate the keyword or words within your notes, hopefully you'll get the information you need to answer. And again, we've talked about the timer. If you're stuck on a question, what I would recommend you do for time, try to stick to that 30-second chunk of time per question. If you still don't know the answer after that, I would recommend you guess. Again, you're not going to lose marks if you're wrong, but don't leave it blank and move on to the next, because what happens if you forget it's blank and then you miss it altogether, right? You've missed an opportunity there for a point. So if it were my test and I wasn't sure, here's what I would do. I would guess, and on my note paper with my pen, I would just write down the question number that I was stuck on. Maybe it's question 3. So I just write that down, number 3. And that reminds myself that after I go on and answer all the other questions on that computer screen, I double check, it was question 3 that was hard. I go back to question 3 now if I've got extra time on my clock, and now I can focus a little bit more with concentration to see if I can answer it a bit more effectively. If I still don't know, I'll just have to stick with my guess, right? But again, you don't want to get stuck and spend a minute and a half or 2 minutes on one question, because then it's a real struggle to finish all the other questions afterwards. So please, it's not a perfectionist test. Guess and move on. Come back if you have time. And if you don't, it's only one question. It's only one point. Try your best to keep moving forward. Anyway, here's what the computer screen would look like for parts 4 to 6. This one just happens to be a part 4, and that's the one that we're going to practice. I chose it partly because it has a different structure. It's only got one speaker, so I thought that would be a good one to practice. So in part 4, we have 5 questions, and that will always be the case. You can see them here. So it would be up to you to read the question starter, and then you would click that drop-down arrow and the answer boxes will open. Before I show you the answer box, just notice again the time. So part of the time it would take to listen to the conversation, or the dialogue in this case, and then you come to your question screen and you'd have about 3 and a bit minutes left, I guess, to answer these 5 questions. So again, do the math. If we really had 3 minutes here, that would be roughly, if you spent 30 seconds per question, that equals 2.5 minutes. And it still gives you a little bit of leeway. You still have 30 seconds left to then go back and figure out some of the harder ones. It's always about time management on any language test. CELPIP is no different. Anyway, you would work through these questions probably in the order, because again, we already know that most often the order of questions will follow what you've written in your notes, as long as you've taken notes from top to bottom of the page. But we're going to answer, or sorry, this is not even the one we're going to do. I take it back. When it comes time to open up the answers, I wanted to show you that you would click that little drop down arrow, and it's magically going to make the answer choices appear. So that would be the case for every single question, as you can see. You're going to click on the answer you think is right. The computer will insert it into the blank for you. So we will do another listening practice for part 4. And we're going to listen to this audio passage just like we did before. And I'd like you to take notes. So remember, when we have what I call our instruction screen, the detail that's most important, I think, is just to remind yourself how long this lecture is going to be. So it's about 1.5 minutes in length. So I've underlined that for us. After you've reminded yourself of that, you're going to know the rest. You might want to note there's 5 questions, but we know parts 4 to 6, we're going to have drop-down menu options and so on. So this is the time we're going to use to set up our notes. We're not going to set up notes though with 2 columns saying man and woman, because we've only got one speaker for part 4. It is listening to a news item, and this speaker is like a news reporter. So because it's only one person and it's a news report, the notes might be a little bit more complex here, but let's try this today and see if it works for you. So on a fresh sheet of paper, or the backside of what you did for your last practice, if you could go ahead, please, and copy this outline, if you will, into the paper. You notice, again, I've got those 5 W's. It's a who, what, when, where, and why. So any news reporter's job, if they're good at their job, is to give us the report on current events of the day. So all of these details will generally be covered at some point in a news report. Notice that the first 2 columns are who and what, and that what column I've made wider. And I would recommend you do it that way too, because the who and the what are always the most important. You're always going to have the most details of all of your notes under that what column. So just giving yourself more space to write means that you can read your notes back a little bit more easily and neater is all. That's why we're doing it that way. So you would already have your notes made up there during that first introductory screen. And the second one, remember, this is the screen that gives you a little bit of a general overview as to what you're going to listen to next. And this one tells us that the news item is specifically about a unique medical procedure. So we don't yet know what medical procedure we'll be learning about, but we know it has to do something to do with the body and having like a surgery or a medical procedure done. So because that's given to us on this screen, if it were my test, I would grab that idea and I would write it above the what column, just to remind myself in case I get lost with the vocab. The vocabulary is going to be higher level now because we're midway through the test. So if anything else, if I can't catch a lot of the words coming, at least I know that this whole report has something to do with a medical procedure, right? So that's what I wrote down. That's my short form. Again, your short form could look different, but something to remind yourself that this is what we're learning about. That's all we know for now. So you've got your notes set up, you're focused on the topic, you come to the screen so you know the conversation's about to begin. It will remind you how long it is. That's my favorite part. So 1.5 minutes, it's a lot shorter than the last one we did, but the trade-off is it's a more intermediate passage. So the vocab will be a bit trickier. So I'm going to ask you to try your very best to capture as many, especially who and what details as you possibly can, and jot those ideas down in the order they're given to you, top to bottom of those columns. There could also be some when, where, why details. If you're able to catch those, great, but your focus should be first and foremost on who and what. They're going to be the most helpful as you answer questions later. So I'll play this for you now and we'll see what type of notes you can catch. Here we go.
Scientists from Bionic Vision Australia reported that they were successful at implanting the world's first artificial eye. This eye is a very small computerized device that allows patients who lost their eyesight to have some vision. Diane Ashworth, who lost her sight 10 years ago, was the first of 3 patients to receive the device. Dr. Allen states Diane's early results are very promising and expects 2 more patients will receive the eye by the end of this year. Meanwhile, Diane Ashworth spoke to reporters about the moment when scientists turned the device on. She described it as an amazing experience and told reporters she hoped that 2 other patients will have similar results. Diane has not regained her full sight yet. She is only able to see shapes, such as the outlines of objects, and to detect movement. According to Dr. Allen, who installed the device, the present device is just a prototype. The prototype will be switched for a much better and clearer artificial eye in 3 more years.
All righty, that would be the end of that. So before I show you my notes and we get discussing all about it, here's the question screen. So remember, you've got a chunk of minutes here at the top of your screen. Here are the 5 questions. For today's practice, for this one, we're going to look at question number 1. So this one says, the news item is about, and when you click the drop-down arrow, these are the 4 possible answers that come your way. So like we did before, why don't you see if you can answer the question now? You can use the Zoom chat if you wish. And then we'll sort of discuss strategy. You want to be as quick as you can, of course. But I'd like to introduce one more strategy after you've had a chance to think about it. You got a few guesses coming in. I would still try to stick to about a 30-second plan if you can. Okay, we have a couple of different guesses. So we've got some people saying could be B, possibly it could be D. All right, I'll give you another, say, 5 seconds, and then we'll sort of move over to our next time management tip. Okay, now we have an A coming in. I think the only one we haven't chosen is C. All right, well, I'll give this much to you. C is wrong, so I'm glad nobody's chosen it. But of those other 3 choices, clearly there's only one winner. So before I reveal the answer, let's have a look at the next time management strategy here. This, you might not believe me at first, but bear with me. Sometimes understanding the type of question that you're answering is going to allow you to know where specifically in the notes you should be looking. It's actually going to allow you to more effectively answer the question, but also save you a ton of time. Like we said before, knowing where to look in your notes is just the fastest way to find the information you need so you can answer and move on. So this particular question, of the CELPIP questions rather, there are 3 types. So they're either going to be general meaning questions, and these are questions that ask you about these kind of big, broad ideas that want just the gist. They're not looking for specifics. The second type of information is specific information. So these are going to focus your attention down on one particular detail, like a who or a what type detail. Inference questions are always the hardest. They are going to ask you to connect to the material and make assumptions. So the answer choices won't be stated directly in the passage. They won't be stated directly in your notes. Instead, what you're going to have to do is look at your notes, understand what you've just heard, and using logic and reasoning, you would select the answer that makes the most sense. So I'm going to put again that the question starter, I'll call it. This is what it was on the computer screen. The news item is about. Can you tell me in the Zoom chat box which type of question this is? The news item is about. Is it general meaning, specific info, or inference? And there is a reason why I'm asking. There always is. So Merv is quick here. Anisha's quick as well. General meaning, specific info, or inference. Okay. I'll give you another 5-6 seconds. If you don't know, you can guess, or you can wait until I tell you. Either or, doesn't really matter. All right. Well, we'll give credit to both Merv and Anusha for coming in so quickly with their guesses because they're both absolutely correct, as is Rosaline here. This is a classic example of a general meaning type question. And I guarantee you, not that I'm psychic, but on every single CELPIP practice test I've ever looked at some point in the reading or listening questions, you're going to get a question like this. So the reading passage is about, or what are the man and woman discussing? You know, what's the main idea of the passage, etc. So when you see a question like that, which is exactly what we have here, the news item is about, you know that you're being asked in general terms what all of the ideas that you've just captured in your notes are going to talk about. So at the top of my notes, and I'll put an orange box around where I want you to look, it'd be right there. You can see under the who and the what column, right at the very beginning, the news reporter explains to us that scientists, that's the who, these are the people, you can see my short form, and they happen to work for a company called Bionic Vision Australia. So I chose to write it that way. That's the who in this situation. And right beside that, underneath where the red oval is on your screen, I've written down art, like A-R-T period. You know what I can do? How about this instead? Why don't I use the Zoom chat box? That's a little bit easier, isn't it? So this is what you should be seeing on the computer screen. So I've got this first, like so. And that stands for artificial eye, computerized. That's just made sense to me. And then right below that, under that same what column, this is what I wrote, some vision. Okay, and the reason why I put an orange box around that is because a news reporter, or any speaker for that matter, when they begin a speech and you're listening, their job is to introduce the main ideas right at the beginning of the talk to begin with. because they want you to understand what the rest of the conversation is going to be about. So when you're trying to figure out what this whole passage is all about, what is the general meaning, knowing it's a general meaning question, it focuses our attention on the very first parts within the chart, the introduction. Okay, so returning back now. So as I was saying in the introduction, like the very first part of any speech is when you're basically going to be giving in general terms what this whole dialogue's about. So looking there, right, at the what column, we're trying to figure out what the news item is all about. So it makes sense to look under the what column to begin with. That just makes so much sense. So looking at the information there, artificial eye, computerized, some vision. Looking back now at those 4 possible answer choices, would you like to revise your guesses? A lot of you were not sure if it was A, B, or D. So recognizing that in the introduction, the news reporter told us what these scientists at Bionic Vision are creating is an artificial eye. It is computerized, but it allows people to see. With that information in mind, which answer is probably correct? We'll do one more little poll in the online Zoom if you want, in the live chat. Some of you are going to want to keep your answer, but some of you are going to need to change it. Do you want to try it one more time? Or not? Can we access the Zoom chat? I'm just checking now, making sure it's all good. There we come. Okay, I was worried that I had disabled my chat box or something. So Henry's sticking with B. What about the rest of you? The crucial detail comes in the very first point under the what column, because that's where the introduction should be found if the news reporter is good at her job. And in this case, she's very good at her job. And this is exactly where we need to be looking. And I'm starting to see a trend. A lot of people are going with B. B says a medical breakthrough. And I'm leaning that way too, because if we consider this artificial eye that's been created as something that's going to help people see, what we should find now under that what column is that every other detail there should relate back to the eye that's being created. And because when I look down the what column and I see that this artificial eye, I've included it in every single part of my note. And the only part that I didn't right here, I didn't actually reference the eye, but what this patient was talking about is that using this eye now allows her to see shapes, outlines, and movements. So she can't see 100% yet. She doesn't have full sight, but she can see shapes, outlines, and movement. So again, knowing it's a general meaning question, understanding it has something to do with this artificial eye that's giving us vision, recognizing that in a general meaning topic, if it is indeed the main topic, every other detail within our notes and within the passage have to connect and relate back to it. And they do quite beautifully. Remember back at the opening when we wrote this little detail as well from the computer screen, we were told it's a medical procedure. So even looking at the language, medical procedure, and then you look back at those answer choices, those of you that selected B, medical breakthrough, are absolutely correct. So again, it's sort of knowing what's the question type, general meaning, what's going to be most helpful, introduction, how do I double check I've got it right? All the details within the rest of that what column should relate back to the topic I've identified. Okay, so again, question type, as you can see, plays a good role in allowing you to more efficiently or more effectively answer questions correctly. Anyway, whatever question or whatever answer, I guess, you select there, when you click on it, it is going to be inserted into the white space in green print, just to let your eyes know you've answered it. If at any time you do want to change your mind, you perfectly can. Just click on medical breakthrough again, and the same 4 answers will open up in the answer box. And you can just click something different and the answer gets inserted into the blank. But this one is indeed the right answer. So well done for those of you selecting B. If you didn't select B, that's okay. I hope that the sort of rationale helps you understand why this one's right. But more importantly, I hope that the strategies of recognizing question type and going from there is the big takeaway today. So you can apply that to future test practice. Anyway, let's just summarize what we did today. And then Christina will have a few words, of course, about the ILAC programs. So sort of the main steps we looked at is always getting our notes ready to go, even before the audio plays. You're only saving a few seconds of time here and there, but in listening parts 1 to 3, you've only got about 26 seconds to answer every question anyways, after the question's read out loud. So I think the more seconds you have for listening, the better. So get those notes taken care of when you can during those instruction screen. Any other details given to you in the introduction, get them into your notes. You've already got some notes created, I guess, before the audio plays. So that's going to help you with time as well. This is what we really focused on today, is taking notes from top to bottom. If two people are speaking, you've got 2 columns. If one person is speaking, like the news reporter, you might have several columns, but either way, you're going to write from the top to the bottom. Because if we're answering the last question from the part, we'll probably start by looking at the bottom of the notes. Likewise, if it was a middle question, maybe the middle rows would be a little more effective. So organization will definitely speed up finding the relevant details. And again, we just have to watch visually with our own eyes the timer. You know, for the 30-second questions, it's easy because you can see those red seconds counting back, and you've got to answer something before it gets to 0. For parts 4 to 6, you do have to keep a closer eye on the time because you've got that chunk of minutes. So don't let time get away from you and spend a full minute and a half or whatever on one question. And we've talked about guessing. Honestly, if you don't know, guess, move on. You can always come back if you do have time, especially in the parts 4 to 6. Parts 1 to 3, you can never go back, right? Once you're done a question, the test moves forward. So whatever you guess, it's done. The parts 4 to 6, because all of your questions are on one computer screen, you have the ability to go back if you need a bit more time. Anyway, in a nutshell, that's what the time management's all about. So I'm going to maybe just stop sharing the screen altogether. And if you do have any questions about the CELPIP listening test, let's answer them quickly. And then Christina has some information about the wonderful programs that ILAC does. So are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Brandy. Amazing tips and insights. Thank you. I think we all learn from you from each session. Not so sure if everyone here is if today is your first time joining this CELPIP demo lesson, or if you have joined us for either other sessions, maybe Zoom sessions or Instagram lives. Bear in mind that we do this every 2 weeks. So we do Instagram sessions. We will do it in 2 weeks time on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Toronto time, 4 p.m. Vancouver time. And then in a month time, we will do another Zoom webinar. So fantastic session again, Brandy. Thank you. And so now I just want everyone who joined a bit later to please click on that link that I'm sharing now in the chat box. Fill out the form. I just need your first, last name, email, your WhatsApp number, and then select your CELPIP demo lesson. And we're gonna be drawing 1 week of classes for free. So one of you guys can be the winner of 1 week of classes for free. Okay, so please make sure that you fill out this form. And in the meantime, I'm going to just share my screen and give you some information of our preparation classes, right? So at ILAC, we offer CELPIP preparation classes. We are also a CELPIP test center in both locations, Toronto and Vancouver. I think you can see now the screen. If Brandy, maybe you can, yeah, give me a thumbs up. Thank you so much. So why would you consider taking any preparation classes? Well, I think from today's session, you can see that how much we learned from Brandy, but this is just within 50 minutes session, right? So I think we will all value more time on this. So at ILAC, as I said, we offer CELPIP preparation classes. We have expert exam teachers. We offer classes in flexible schedules. You could choose to come in person or online. We also offer full-time and part-time schedules, affordable prices, and amazing promotions that I'll be sharing in a second. All right, so what's available for you? So you could choose to come on for in-person classes. So we offer both in-person Toronto and Vancouver. You could choose on the full-time schedule or part-time schedule. So full-time, we call it classes will go from Monday through Thursday. Okay, so 4 days a week, and schedule goes from 6 to 9:30. We switch now we finish a bit earlier, so 9:30, 6 to 9:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday. That's our full-time schedule. And we also offer part-time schedule. So you could choose to come just twice a week, Monday and Wednesday, or Tuesday and Thursday. So you can see which skill we teach every day, right? So if you choose, let's say if you want to focus on listening and speaking, you would choose a part-time schedule coming on Tuesdays and Thursdays. right? If you want to do reading and writing, then you would choose Monday and Wednesday. So it's very, very clear. And again, it's scheduled 6 to 9:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday for in-person classes. If you are wondering maybe if you prefer to do online, we also offer what we call CELPIP Bootcamp. It's a very fast-track course, and within 4 weeks, you're ready to take the test. We offer it in 2 different time slots. It's 6 to 8 p.m. Toronto time, or then 6 to 8 p.m. Vancouver time. In classes, they also go Monday through Thursday. And on Fridays, we have an optional drop-in. When you register for the CELPIP Bootcamp classes, you can also select the intake that you want to register, that you want to sign up for, and also the skill that you want to focus on. So you are able to see which skill we're focusing on that week when you want to sign up for. So if you're looking, as I said, same for the in-person classes, if you're looking to just focus on one particular skill or 2 skills, they go hand in hand, reading and writing, and then listening and speaking, right? So you are able to choose that as well. All right. In terms of the promotions, so we have great promotions for in-person classes. We deliver those classes under the ILAC Nat School division. So students, they could choose between 2 promotions. So one promotion is getting extra weeks of classes for free. So for every 5 weeks that you register, you get 1 additional week for free. Or the other promotion that you could choose from is to get your free test. So for every, when you register for 8 weeks on a full-time schedule or 12 weeks part-time, ILAC covers the test of the fee. Okay. Bootcamp. As I said, you could register for either 2 weeks or 4 weeks maximum. That's the length of the CELPIP Bootcamp course. We start every 2 weeks. Tuition fee is $100 per week and registration $50. Material are provided. Okay. What else we offer for you? For free, we also offer free trial lessons. So for those who are here in Toronto or in Vancouver, we offer trial lessons. You could choose to come to join any day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Very easy, straightforward process. You will just need to take an assessment test, book the trial day with us. You come and try one ongoing class. Okay, so that's for the free trial classes. And then, of course, free demo lessons that we're delivering, as I said, once a month through Zoom webinars as tonight's session, and then Instagram lives as well. Okay, so please always follow us on Instagram, social media, stay connected, so then you will receive all these notifications. Another benefit for you, if maybe a preparation course is not something that you're looking for, but you know someone who might be interested in signing up for our classes, when you refer a new student to us, you get $100 Visa or MasterCard. Okay, so this is also fantastic for you to know that if you know a neighbor, a friend, a relative that might be interested, please do send them our way, and we will be sure to send you the $100 gift card as a thank you. And where can you find us? So we're always very well located in both downtown Toronto and Vancouver cities. This is the location, 425 Bloor East, which is the Bloor and Sherbourne intersection. And then for Vancouver, we are at Cordova, so always downtown. And if you want to stay connected with us, you can either email us at info@ilac.com. You can always scan the QR code, and one of our team members will follow up with you via WhatsApp. So make sure that you scan the QR code if you prefer to connect via WhatsApp, or send us an email at info@ilac.com. Or of course, you're more than welcome to come and visit our premises, our schools, downtown Toronto and downtown Vancouver. Okay, I'll just allow just maybe a few more seconds for everyone to scan the QR code. And of course, I can share the contact details in the chat, so then you can always stay connected with us. Okay. I'm going to just stop sharing and see if anyone has any questions. Let me see. May I see the location details again? Yes, let me just share the screen again. Just bear one moment, and I can, of course, paste that information in the chat box I think is now, yes, you can see. Just need to go back to the previous screen. All right. Okay, there you go. So if you're in Toronto, we are on 425 Bloor Street East, which is Sherbourne and Bloor, okay, intersection. We are literally on top of Sherbourne subway station on the Green Line. And if you're in Vancouver, we are downtown Toronto, downtown Vancouver as well. So 1168 West Cordova. Okay. Those are our offices. I'm going to just open the chat since I have the presentation without closing the presentation because I want to make sure that I see for taking the exam. So if I'm not mistaken, for the exam, we offer them Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Milena. Yeah, so we are also, not only we prepare for classes, right, as we mentioned, in person and online, but we also are a test center, okay, in both locations, Toronto and Vancouver, in those exact locations that you see. Is it flexible to take a course or of just 2 weeks? Yes, Anusha, you can take just 2 weeks classes for CELPIP Bootcamp online, right? We offer them in 2 different, let me just bring you back to the screen so you can see. So CELPIP Bootcamp, we offer it from 6 to 8 p.m. Toronto time, and then also 6 to 8 p.m. Vancouver time. Okay, so for the CELPIP online, you could take either 2 weeks or 4 weeks, so then you will complete the full cycle. As for the cost, Milena, I think after taxes, it comes up to $327 for the CELPIP test. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to also leave here the contact details so you can also copy them. All right, so for the email is info@ilac.com or WhatsApp is +1 236 333 2007. Okay, yes, you're aiming for a CLB 10. That's awesome. So please do connect with us. Let me just share the screen as well, where you can scan our QR code that brings you to our WhatsApp. Thank you, everyone, for connecting tonight. Again, it was fantastic to co-host this session with you, Brandy, as always. Thank you for your support. And if you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us, visit us in our school, email us, or call us, or message us on WhatsApp. Okay. So thank you, everyone, and see you soon in the next session. Take care. Bye-bye.